Well, hello and welcome to the Nighthawk Racing #First Championship. I'm Sarah Hawkins, also known as Sarah Hawkey, and I will be your host this evening and one of your co-commentators for this Gran Turismo 7 base championship. And tonight again I am joined by motorsport enthusiast, racer and co-commentator Midnight ISO.
Hello Sarah, pleasure to be here again in the commentary booth with yourself for the next round of the Nighthawk Racing Championship, this time at High Speed Ring Reverse.
Yeah, looking forward to the race. So before we get into the race, here's just a quick series rundown. We are back better than ever for Season 2 of the Nighthawk Racing First Championship. We have an 8-event championship spanning over 16 race sessions and 8 weeks in total. Lots of different car manufacturers on the grid again tonight, and potentially over 27 drivers in the championship, and all coupled up with some great tracks on the calendar. We have 3 official time sessions tonight, with a reverse grid sprint race up first, followed by qualifying, and then we will be treated to a 50-lap race all around the High Speed Ring Reverse. Okay, Midnight, before we get into the race, could you give us a quick overview of the event session format and point scale, please?
Yes, of course, no problem. As previously stated, our main feature will be of 50 laps, but we'll get there with this one. We'll be starting with a 15-minute sprint session, which is based in reverse average points scored across all the previous events, championship order, basically. We'll make that a bit more clear when we get to the race. But that's our first race based at 15 minutes, which will be then followed by a qualifying event for the feature race itself. Now, the qualifying itself, all of the drivers have already pre-chosen the tyres which they're going to qualify on and start that feature race on. Going back a step, the sprint is completely open for tyre choice and strategic choice, but the feature itself, this is where it gets interesting. There are a mandatory mandatory requirement for 2 different compounds of tyre and starting on that qualifying tyre. There are points available also for the sprint race, the feature race, and for qualifying. With the sprint, it is quite interesting, and it's from 12 down to 1 from 1st to 12th, with the feature 25 down to 1, 1st to 14th. Qualifying again will have 3 points for first, 2 for second, and 1 for third, and there can also be points picked up for the fastest lap in each session, 1 for the sprint race and 2 for the feature.
Yes, thank you very much, Midnight, for running down the points and what to expect from tonight. Before we get into the racing, here's a quick look at last week's sprint race podium. As you can see, Lee picking up his first ever Nighthawk Racing win, which we know he's been working very hard towards, and this did promote him into Lobby 1 for round 3. We then had LB Racing in second and Yvonne in third. And then I'll switch over to look at the feature race podium of last week. Again, we had LB Racing coming home in first. Then a newcomer to the championship in Ripon Deterrent coming in second place. And Lee in third. And before we head over to watch some racing, we'll just give you a few little bit of track facts about High Speed Reverse. So, the track itself is iconic, featuring in the very first Gran Turismo in the mid-90s, and has returned to GT7 after being absent in GT6 and GT Sport. No doubt a welcome addition to the track supplied, and certainly one to be feared with those unforgiving barriers just inches away from the racing line. I know this caught a few people out in Lobby 1. To me, this track is more of a challenge than an outright classic and historic track. Just to hang on to the car in the feature race for 50 laps is going to be the utmost priority. However, with pit stops here being very long and fuel being used and the high tyre wear, consistency will be massively rewarded here. So Midnight, what are your thoughts about High Speed Ring?
One, I have to absolutely agree to you. It is, despite not having all that many corners, it is still an absolute challenge. If it is more of a strategic challenge and one where you just do not want to make a mistake and end up in that barrier. It's kind of, I use this term a lot, like high-speed Monaco. If you make a mistake, you're in the barrier. That said, I like driving here, and it is definitely a nostalgic feel to it. It goes all the way back to the days of the early PlayStation back in the early mid 90s. And with that banking, it's a unique track on the calendar, and one which we visited in season 1, and to both mixed results and definitely some entertaining racing. But this time we're racing it in reverse, and I think it's a lot of fun. It brings a different degree of racing and a lot more, again, strategic interest, but from slipstreaming and from strategy. So it's a unique one on the calendar, and it's one that we probably will come to again at some point. But for now, you know what, I'm looking forward to this Lobby 2, particularly around here, to see what our drivers come up with around high-speed ring reverse.
Yeah, talking about the racing, let's get into it. Right, so before we get into race number 3 of the season for Lobby 2 drivers, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the drivers and who to expect on the grid tonight. So to start off with, we're going to start with Sophia, and Sophia is driving the Renault RS01, which is a car that goes under the radar just a bit. But with Sophia behind the wheel, she is able to extract all the performance out of that car. Sophia had a slight issue in the feature race last week, but I'm sure she'll be focused on this week's racing and showing her raw pace in that car. As we saw in the sprint race last week, she was blisteringly fast, and I'm sure she'll be aiming to do the same here around the high-speed ring reverse. Sophia is currently in 18th place with 30 points. Next up, we have Ripin Deterin, and Ripin Deterin had a phenomenal first Nighthawk race last week at Yamagiwa, coming home in 2nd place in the feature race, collecting his first Nighthawk podium. Ripin is a fast driver and regularly competes in CCSR events. With the high tyre wear and the fuel wear around the high-speed ring reverse, the 4GT will be a difficult card to handle. Can he do the same again here as what he achieved in Yamagiwa? We will see. Ripin is currently in 19th place with 30 points, tying with Sophia. Next up, we have one of our very own Nighthawk racing admin and Lobby 2 host, Big Crazy Bertie. Bertie is driving at the Subaru BRZ, which proved to be a fast car in Lobby 1, but can Bertie do the same and bring home a big haul of points? Bertie tends to have quiet but consistent races, going under the radar until the very final lap, where all sort of magic can happen. Bertie is currently in 12th place with 50 points. And next up, we have Yvonne. Yvonne will be looking to secure another podium here again tonight, and the way she is driving that VW Beetle, a podium is definitely on the cards. Yvonne and Bertie are ones to watch, as they always provide on-track battles between the two of them. Yvonne is also the community manager and one of the organisers behind the Inner Esports and Screen to Speed team, which looks to increase the amount of women within the industry and providing a platform for women within motorsport and sim racing. They are just getting ready for the Spring Cup as we speak. Yvonne is currently in 13th place with 50 points, tying with Bertie. Next up, we then have Simon. Simon driving the RX Vision again tonight, and with every race Simon does, the more experience he gains, as well as performance, getting faster and more comfortable each week. It's good to see Simon improving race on race, and I'm sure by the end of the championship, Simon will have more experience and will be fighting for positions. Tonight is Simon's 3rd ever competitive race. Simon is in 20th place on 29 points. Next up, we then have Piper in the Viper, and as you can probably tell, this is a phrase you're probably going to be hearing a lot of tonight. It's always great to have Piper on track. Last week we were graced by his presence in the sprint race only, but tonight we'll get to see him on track for both the sprint and the feature race. Looking forward to seeing what Piper in the Viper can do. Piper is currently in 25th place with 6 points. Next up, we have Sharon, and Sharon is back racing tonight in the Ferrari 458. It's good to see her back on the grid after racing alongside Sharon in the Init Esports Screen to Speed Winter Cup. I know Sharon is a very fast driver indeed. Sharon is also a Twitch streamer and streams the races and practice sessions from her point of view. Please make sure to check her out on Twitch, Sharon_fly. Sharon is currently in 23rd place on 16 points. Haslett, aka Saber Venom, as you may see on screen during the racing, driving at the BMW M6 again. This may be a difficult car to handle around this track with the tyre wear being so high tonight. Haslett will be looking to capitalise on the power of that BMW and see how many positions he can gain over the two races. Haslett is currently in 17th place with 36 points. And the final driver of the grid tonight, we have Handy Pint in the Porsche 911. Unfortunately, Handy Pint had a disconnect issue last week around Yamagiwa, resulting in picking up minimal points. Handy Pint has been super fast behind the wheel of the Porsche, and I'm sure he'll be fighting his way back into Lobby 1 very soon. Could we see Handy Pint on the podium once again? Handy Pint is currently in 16th place with 45 points. Well, that rounds out the Nighthawk Racing grid for Lobby 2 Race 3 tonight, and what a good we've got yet again. I'm excited to see all of the drivers on the grid and get back into the comms box and watch the racing commence. Let's switch back over to the cars on the grid. Starting off tonight, we have, in first place, we have Piper in the Viper. A little catchphrase we like to use here in the Nighthawk Racing. Catches on. In second, just behind Piper, we have Simon in the RX Vision, again looking to improve the more races he does. Behind him, we have Sophia in the Renault RS01, who has to take a penalty, a drive-through penalty at the end of lap 1 due to a slight incident last week at Yamagiwa. Behind Sophia, we then have Sharon back in that Ferrari 458 and looking to climb through the grid, I'm sure. And I will hand you over to Midnight, who will explain the rest of the drivers and what cars they're in.
Spot on, thank you, Sarah. Next up in fifth, we have, known as Saber Venom, is actually also known as Haslett in the M6. Followed by Handy Pint, another really high quality driver who has dropped down from Lobby 1, unfortunately, but is going to be looking to regain the Lobby 1 status with a couple of good results here in P6. Followed by our own admin. We know exactly 3 things about him. He's big, he's crazy, and his name is Bertie in P7. In P8 we have Yvonne in the little Yeetle Beetle, and in 9th we have Rippin' to Terran. It's worth saying about the sprint grid that this grid is formed by an average set of points over the races that they have done. So the highest scoring average is at the back, the lower ones are at the front. But however, this is a sprint race around the high speed ring, anything can happen, and well, we'll see what happens and who scores the most points here today. Okay, so it's time for the start of the sprint race.
It is, I'm looking forward to it, I'm excited.
Let's see what our drivers get up to into turn 1 at this high speed ring reverse layout. Rolling start here, and it's going to be a very high speed entry into turn 1. Are we all going to make it through here safely? Sophia taking a very wide line, rounding outside Simon into turn 1, and has done nicely so far. And Piper is gone as well in that Viper.
He's not waiting around for nobody.
So far so good, no incidents from what I can spot. Looks like everyone's made it through. Simon has fallen to the back of the grid at the moment and is skating around the outside, but he's doing well. And at the moment, otherwise it still looks like as we started. Piper in P1, Sophia in P2, heading into that very difficult turn 4. Sharon closely followed by Haslett. And Handy Pint.
Jumped on board with Haslett now. He's in a little bit of a sandwich between Sharon and Handy Pint. Handy Pint going on to that inside, around the large banked corner, going on to the start-finish straight.
And at the moment,
ooh, very close.
Handy...
Cuts right back into behind Sharon, getting that slipstream.
Yep. You can definitely see the slipstream playing a massive part here. Sophia is serving her drive-through penalty from Yamagiwa. Two side by side into turn 1. Handy Pint and Haslett. And they gave each other racing room and respect, but that has brought Yvonne into the battle in that Beetle, who's now going for the move, potentially on Haslett into turn 2. Still side by side into turn 3. Haslett has now taken up residence of P4, and Handy Point has gotten away from these pair and is now chasing down Sharon. And at the back,
it's good to see Sharon back on the grid again tonight.
Yeah, quite right.
Doing really well so far.
Quite right. At the moment, Rip and Tateran in 7th, sitting quite calmly, I feel, right behind Bertie. Interesting strategic choice. We do have Rip and Tateran, who is using those hard tyres at the moment, so potentially just going a bit longer than the other drivers around. But down the pit straight, Yvonne and Haslett are drag racing each other into that turn 1.
It just goes to show when you get under that rear wing and get into that slipstream, it does really help going into that first fast corner. Oh, Sharon makes a little bit of a mistake, just joined the back of that, which bumps her down a little bit, brings her back into the arms of Yvonne and Bertie.
Yeah, it looks like Bertie has snuck up the inside there a little bit. It does show you that one tiny mistake and you're dropping 3, even 4 places very, very quickly around here, but still early on in this race, only 3 laps in and a 15-minute race.
Yeah, and it just goes to show how talented the drivers are as well, because within a few laps, everyone's still really close to each other, so it just goes to show how fast these drivers really are. Quite
right, and all consistent up together in the same place. Worth saying though, we haven't actually mentioned it, Piper out front, still leading, having a cracking race so far.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be looking behind to see all the drivers behind him, but he'll also be looking in front, enjoying that.
There goes Yvonne.
That clear space.
And Rip into Tateran on Sharon as well. So we've got a couple of moves going down to turn 1, following Yvonne. Snuck up the inside of Haslett and made the move stick. Good little bit of racing there. And I think we've just seen Rip and Tateran have a massive accident into turn 1. Caught the back end of it, saw him going sideways. And yeah, that massive damage there on that Ford GT.
Yeah, it just goes to show that little bit of mistake, too much curb or kind of a little tap to the barrier, it can pick up quite a bit of damage, which obviously does affect your race a little bit, makes you kind of change your strategy a little bit. So I'm sure he'll be kind of pitting to repair that damage as soon as possible and get back out there, as they say.
I think he'll have to. Just watching Sophia potentially go right round the outside of Rip and Tateran. Absolutely beautiful move there from Sophia. Make her way back up after that penalty. Looking towards the front again.
With Yvonne as well. We just jumped to that at the same time. Yvonne gets a lot of strips in there, going into the inside, into turn 1. You can just see Piper just in the distance there. So I'm sure Yvonne will be looking to try and catch Piper as soon as she can.
Yeah, Yvonne making use of those medium tyres while she has the grip and going for P2. And now we've got Haslett and Handy Pint together as well, followed by Bertie. So for it's a 3-way fight for P3, and just off the back of... Oh, that was close.
That was very close. Oh, just on board with Haslett there. I think he got a little bit caught out by Yvonne there. Obviously just not being able to react just in time, which sends him in a little bit of a spin. Oh, he spins again, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we've got also Piper with a half-second penalty out front, who's going to serve it down the straight. Yvonne with rear end damage. Bertie in P3 with no damage at all.
Oh, Simon just catches Haslett there. Haslett's still in the middle of the track. I don't think Simon was quite ready for a car to be on track coming around that corner. So does bump into Haslett, so I don't think that kind of helped the damage. But again, not all races, we don't expect a car on track. So yeah, especially coming out under that tunnel section, it's quite hard to see any cars on track. So he did well to not completely destroy that car, but I'm sure Haslett will be coming into the pits, repairing that damage and getting back out there.
Yeah, it is worth saying there's a bunch of cars as we just see Bertie take P2, caught the end of that move through turn 2, and he's now up to P2. There's lots of 2s in that one. There's a bunch of cars with damage. Yvonne with rear end damage, Handicap with front end damage. Sharon's car, unfortunately, loads of front damage and a little bit of rear right suspension. Sophia's got carrying massive damage as well, unseen by us. Ripon Deterin, who has pitted for damage already, hasn't changed tyres, interestingly enough, but is now circulating back in 7th and potentially making his way back up. Haslett with lots of damage, and Simon with front end damage, but he's holding on to the back of Haslett, and so far still going strong. At the moment though, Piper, it looks like his front left is about to die, so this is going to be where it's going to become very, very tricky for that Viper.
Yeah, we saw it in Lobby 1 as well, that the tyre wear around here, it was very, very easy for the tyres to wear out so quickly, which did catch a few drivers out. So yeah, I don't think I think a few drivers will try and see if they can drive on those worn out tyres and improve their, you know, their strategy a little bit, because there is such high round here, and around a track like this you kind of want that traction around these high speed corners.
Yeah, exactly that. The one thing I can say from Lobby 1 is I've definitely figured out you definitely want the front tyres to go before the rears, because as soon as the rears go you have absolutely no traction, and that's a liability increase for very much a lot of spinning. But at the moment I don't think Piper's going to be agreeing with me too much, because his front left is absolutely gone. Will he carry on? Will he pit, Sarah? He hasn't pitted, he's carrying on.
I'm going to go back to it, I know I always say it, but it's that risk versus reward at the end of the day. It's, can I carry on, but am I going to risk a crash, or do I want to pit and get on a fresh set of tyres, which might be a slightly bit faster, but also might mean that, you know, he has to, gets on the grass there a lot, does Piper, comes back into the track.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. There's that risk versus reward that you were talking about, and it's unfortunately bitten him.
Yeah, going into that tunnel section, getting a little bit on the grass there, which did send the car into a spin. Don't talk to me about grass and spinning.
Nor Mac.
That's a story for another day. But yeah, unfortunate for Piper there. He was in the, you know, in the lead, a very commanding lead. But you know, it just shows that how fast Piper is, and you never know, his day will come, and hopefully, maybe, you know, in the feature race or next sprint race, we'll see him dominating that lead again.
Quite possibly, as we saw from Lobby 1, we saw a very shock win from our own Koulios. So this track can throw up a bunch of surprises out of absolutely nowhere. I'm not knocking anyone's talent, but this track very much does cause surprises in a very good way. But yeah, Piper unfortunately being bit.
I'm just on board with Handy Pipe now, and the strategy going for on the start finish rate is to really rev out that Porsche 911 in 5th gear, which is, you know, very interesting. But I like the Porsche, and maybe, you know, in that 5th gear he's got a lot of speed that he can carry into that first corner.
Yeah, the only question I would have is he over revving at all, but I guess we'll find out towards the end. But at the end of the day, this is a sprint. You want to go as fast as you can.
Yeah, and obviously being the first session of the night, I'm sure a lot of drivers will kind of use this sprint race as a data strategy collection kind of race. What tyres work for how long? Do they need to change their feature race strategy in a little bit, or are they going to stick with it? I remember when I was racing last season, I always kind of use the sprint races to, all right, I can use these tyres for X amount of time, but after that time, I know I'm going to spin.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Using the sprint as your own test session is a good idea. At the moment out there, we just see a lot of the drivers who have not pitted despite carrying damage. I think they all know that if you pit around here, it is a lot of time in the pits. So it's kind of one of those tricky moments. Do you race conservatively, just try and keep those tyres intact, keep the car intact, or do you go hell for leather, risk a pit stop, and go as fast as you can? But it looks like a lot of the drivers choosing the conservative option at the moment, and at the moment it's paying off for Bertie, who is still driving around on those medium tyres with nearly 12 minutes gone out in P1.
Yeah. Since Bertie's really got to grips with that Subaru over these past 3 races, obviously driving the McLaren last season. But yeah, he's driving that Subaru very well, and looks like potentially he might be on for a sprint race victory.
I would agree so. The one thing we did figure out from Lobby 1 is the BRZ is particularly strong here, but the one thing you've got to do is get to the end. It's not all the car. You have to make sure you get to the end without any big spins, or something I can't speak for. And yeah, and he's making the absolute most of the package he's got in front of him. The one thing I have definitely noticed between Lobby 1 and Lobby 2, some very different but unique and interesting lines being taken by some of the drivers. And one thing from practice that we did figure out pretty quickly on is there isn't a particular dominant line around here. It is how you're comfortable and how you can extract the speed out of the car and yourself, rather than what is the outright best line. So interesting to see.
Yeah, 11 laps in, I've been on board with a few drivers picking some slightly different lines, so it just goes to show what works for you might not work for someone else, but we all have slightly different racing lines, and that kind of helps, you know, feel a little bit more comfortable into the race. I was just looking up into the sky, it was very grey.
It really does. I mean, this is a track which can give us... Ooh, Sophia getting a swapper on in turn 4. But, sorry, this track is one that can give us some exciting weather. But as of yet, excuse me, it's still dry, but we'll see what happens. I can see Sophia absolutely struggling with that car at the moment. And I think she's given up with that one now. Might come into the pits. Nope, has still not come into the pits, but is lapping about 4 seconds a lap off where she would have been. But it's only a lap or so to go, so probably not worth a pit stop now.
No, and yeah, it's this late on into the race. It's, do you want to keep onto that track position or repair the damage? It's a bit of a tough call. Obviously, if she wants to go for the fastest lap, potentially she might come in for the last lap, get on the set of softs and set a blister in time, or just hold the track position she's in.
Exactly that. Worth saying that Bertie still holds the fastest lap in 1:10.1, and he looks up one with that car out in P1 at the moment, who's coming up to lap Simon, who again is still doing well, and we're still seeing progress on every single race. And
Andy Point comes into the pits.
yeah, and I would assume that is down to fuel. So unfortunately he's not gauged it right, and yeah, he's had to come in for a splash and dash. Unfortunately, that's lost him a podium choice.
Similar to Lee in the sprint race in Lobby 1 as well. Unfortunately, just runs out of fuel on that last lap. So it just goes to show that last lap is a little bit of a troublesome one with calculations. It's just goes to show how fast the drivers are. They get that extra lap in, but obviously with strategies and fuel, it does cause a little bit of a headache.
It really does. It really does. And this is a very, very high fuel race. And Sarah, Bertie about to take his first win for the F1 RST Championship and Nighthawk Racing.
Yeah.
Takes P1.
He takes P1. I'm very, very happy for him, of course. He's always got, you know, some good performances up his sleeve. So, yeah, I'm very happy for Bertie and very proud.
Yeah, exactly the same. One of our own admin, an all-round good gent. And he's just proved today it's not about speed, but it's about consistency in this championship. And he's definitely done exactly that. But we have our two ladies picking up her podium each. That's great to see.
Yeah, and I've got to say, I'm very happy, you know, obviously racing Sharon and Yvonne in the Init Esports Screen to Speed Wind Cup. I'm very happy to see them both on the sprint race podium.
Yeah. And Piper.
Oh no!
He's not going to lose a place though, but he's out of fuel. Out of fuel with no engine in that Viper. Yeah. But that's the most unique
coasting,
way.
Shall we
say.
He's bringing it home, literally.
He's taking in the ambience.
Oh, poor Piper.
But
no, he's bringing it home.
He is. It's actually great to see.
Slow, but...
I'm very happy for him to score a P4 and only just half a lap behind a podium, and he's done very well there. But it's also, he was leading the opening part of the race for a good number of laps. So well done to our own Piper in the Viper. So Sarah, any particular highlights from the opening sprint race for Lobby 2?
I mean, we've got to talk about Bertie winning his first ever Nighthawk sprint race. I mean, what a showing from Bertie. It just goes to show that when you're one with that car around the track, that if it clicks, it clicks, and if it works, you know, it works. And it definitely worked for Bertie today. Aside from that, I've got to say, you know, big shout out to Yvonne and Sharon as well on the second and the third place. I've got to say, proud of them as well, but proud of everyone. I mean, 13 laps around here isn't easy, so I'm excited to see how they deal with 50 laps.
Yeah, quite right. I think there is a lot that we can inform from this race. Again, Bertie has put on a very measured performance. I mean, that BRZ, if you run it flat out, you'll be out of fuel well before the end. So he's measured himself absolutely perfectly in that one. Stayed out of trouble and picked up his first win of the entire championship and across 2 seasons. So he will not be unhappy with his performance at all and be very proud of himself. And 2 of the 3 ladies picking up podiums as well. It's absolutely great to see, and they're going to be knocking on the door of Lobby 1 at this present rate, so well done to them. And Piper, that's great to see him in P4. All the other drivers have done themselves absolutely proud, but I'm definitely going to learn from this one. I mean, there's bits in this race where they're going to be saying, right, that's the data collection. We're going to have to either save fuel, save tyres, or learn when to push for the feature race. So that's the sprint out of the way, and yeah, feature race, here we go.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, lights going up, about to go out, time for a race start. Here we go, Sarah.
Yeah, on what will be 50 laps around high speed ring reverse.
Yeah, all get away.
Piper, what a start from Piper.
Yeah, and clearly using that V10 power of that Viper as it goes into turn 1 on the inside line and up to P2. Sophia is clearing P1 at the moment. Piper running up close and across the grass. Is he going to get away with it? No, he's half spin. He's going to get away with it. He's just got away with it. Whew. Now in way to start the race, and Handy Pint is making a move for P4 on Bertie. Bertie has fallen back a bit in the first lap.
Yeah. Just goes to show that the first lap dramas, you know, if you don't get that start spot on, it does drop you back a little bit. But I'm sure Bertie will be looking to climb back onto that top step of the podium.
Yeah, quite right. It is noted that Handy Pint is on those hard tyres as well. So some drivers clearly playing a longer game than others, or very least just trying to get the tyres to survive more than I had heard that some drivers are having the soft tyres run out after 4 or 5 laps, so clearly thinking longer strategy. What there, Sarah?
Yeah, it's just on board with Handy Pint, ripping to turn, giving Handy Pint a little bit of a bump draft, which is good to see the teamwork.
Yep, it is a tactic that is well worth using around here. You can speed yourself up and the person in front of you for mutual gain, as we just see Sharon unfortunately having a spin out of turn 1, picking up some damage. That's unfortunate in the 458, but hopefully she can make a comeback for the rest of the race. This is a very, very long race, and there will be other incidents, I'm sure. Out front.
It just goes to show that that little mistake can kind of get you out of the pack, and yeah, the curbs and the grass around here are pretty lethal.
Yep, I completely agree on that. And it looks like there is definitely a couple of packs forming. We can see Sophia and Hassett making a bid for a gap out the front, but from 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, they're all in a relatively tight group on all I think they're all on medium tyres with the exception of Handy Pint at the moment. We can see Bertie getting to also making a little bit of a bump draft move with Yvonne trying to make a gap from the 911 and the 4GT behind them.
I was going to say, it's good to see the drivers using that tactic, you know, helping each other out, making sure that no one gets away too quickly.
Yep, and it's interestingly, Sharon has chosen to carry on rather than pitting for the damage, choosing to carry the damage and absorb the issue rather than pit and spend a lot more time stationary in the pits.
Could be beneficial if she's feeling comfortable driving with that damage. You know, obviously it might help a little bit further into the race. You know, when she comes in for that first pit stop anyway, she can just factor in for a little bit more time to repair that damage.
Yep, completely agree. Yep, there's definitely sort of two pairs of drivers in the top half of the field at the moment, with Bertie and Yvonne pushing each other further, trying to make a gap in that top pack. It's actually Bertie seems to be going for the move now down the straight, and that BRZ, as we know, is very, very quick down the straight. But will we see Rip and Deterrent continue to work with Handy Pint or go for the move? Now, at the moment, they're still following each other. Maybe Rip and Deterrent's playing a bit more of a strategic game, just saving a little bit of fuel behind the 911, just using that slipstream to just not to expend all of the fuel early on. And I just caught Piper out of turn 1, absolutely shredding his front left tyre. It was disappearing in a cloud of smoke there.
It was. I did catch that as well. One person that's known for that is Mac Manley on the F1 games. He likes to smoke screen a few of us. So yeah, not normally we see it in GT7, but yeah. Yeah,
we always know when we're near Mac. It's like, Mac, you in front of me somewhere? Why? Smoke screen. It's like driving behind a back car.
It's like, now I'm here, now I'm gone.
Alright, I'm just keeping an eye. It looks like Yvonne is falling back a little bit to Handy Pint and to Rip and Deterrent.
Yeah, those two bump drafting each other.
It's good to see a lot of the drivers taking the high line into turn 1 just to carry that speed down to turn 2. It's absolutely essential around here. But in this middle section, you kind of do what you want. We learned that from Swizzy and Pedro, who both did hot laps for us, who ended up doing roughly the same sort of time on very different lines.
Yeah, it just goes to show what we said earlier about one line might not work out for everybody. It's kind of finding what you're comfortable and kind of how far you're willing to go to set that fastest lap and the risk you're willing to take.
Also, battle for 8th forming at the moment between Sharon and Simon. Sharon looks like she's catching up again, both carrying a little bit of damage on the front left and front aero, so both a little bit deficient on top speed, but battle forming nonetheless. Good experience for the pair.
Yeah, I'm just on board with Yvonne and Handy Pint. Handy Pint giving Yvonne a little bit of a bump draft over that start-finish straight. So a lot of drivers, you know, being, you know, quite tactical here, using the tactics to their advantage. As we see Handy Pint going for that move and Yvonne going to that inside line underneath the tunnel. And comes out just ahead.
Yep, good move there. Handy Pint with the better tyres at the moment on those hard tyres. Despite being a little bit lacking in grip, they have a much longer longevity So making use of that. And I've got to say, Yvonne definitely surprised at the championship so far to me. Always consistently good and pulling off results in that Beetle.
Yeah, and obviously knowing that she doesn't feel 100% confident on the controller, you wouldn't know from her racing that she's a phenomenal racer, and yeah, she's doing so well in the championship so far.
Move for P2 potentially on the cards, although Bertie is actually giving Haslett a bit of a bump draft. So Bertie again trying to play the long game, as we saw, pick up his first victory of the whole season. Piper in the pits, by the way, but Bertie picking up his first victory in the sprint race, so we know he's good around here.
Yeah, the two seem to be a perfect equation for Bertie. This track, this car, is doing a pretty good job so far in that third place. And yeah, like you go to say, a lot of drivers using that bump draft tactic, which is it's nice to see. Obviously, you know, helping each other out and using the tactic to their advantage, but they're not kind of afraid to help each other out, and but also to make the overtaking moves where they feel it's possible.
I have to say, in this series, it's one thing to help yourself, well, to help someone on the track, but you're also somewhat sneakily helping yourself as well. We know some drivers do like to work together, but it is both for mutual and selfish gains. Particularly around here, bump draft helps you pair, but at the end of the day, it's good to see them both pushing each other forwards for mutual gains, particularly at this moment.
Yeah, exactly. Just goes to show kind of the level of racing drivers that we have here, and the camaraderie amongst all the racing drivers, which is nice to see.
Quite right, quite right. Just having an eyeball, it looks like Haslett's front left has reached the point where it is dead. Sophia out front has picked up a half-second penalty, but she is a couple of seconds clear, but her rear left is dead, so traction is going to be a bit of an issue for her in that RS01. Which I know what I'd rather have. I'd rather have a dead front left than a dead rear tyre where all the traction comes from, but some people can deal with that a lot better than others.
Yeah, and in Lobby 1 as well, a lot of drivers opt in to drive on worn out tyres, which in the interviews they said gave them kind of a little bit more speed as opposed to the fresh set, which not always the way around tracks in GT7, but around this track it seems that the opposite seems to work around here.
And I would venture, I mean, we do talk about Lobby 2 having a lot of talent in it. I would venture that Lobby 1 has copied a lot of Lobby 2 tactics in this sense, because we saw it particularly with Coach into Lagos, I believe it was, using that tactics, just running those tyres down to the canvas and down to the actual alloy, as it were, and now a lot of the drivers seem to be doing it, even in Lobby 1.
Yeah, it just goes to show obviously that practice makes perfect. If all the drivers are practicing and driving the car on the rims, they build their confidence. They know the characteristics of the car. So I mean, if drivers can pull off driving on the rims and still feeling confident and fast, then by all means, if it works, it works. Quite
right. And I'm just looking through the field at the moment. Every time I see Simon's RX Vision, I think that's a gorgeous looking car. But I am biased. I do like a good sort of bronzy copper sort of livery. So occasionally you might catch me just staring at it for a little while.
Yeah, no, just to mention to Simon as well, like I said earlier, he's improving race on race, and it's good to see him circulating and then doing so well.
Yeah, quite right. And it's at this point where you start gaining experience, start gaining a bit of confidence, and you move yourself forwards. But that's one thing we're all about, is bringing drivers on and helping them improve. We are about competition, but friendly competition.
Yeah, and Sophia's either dropped back, or Haslett and Bertie have caught Sophia quite rapidly.
Yes, I was just noticing something similar. I think Sophia is really struggling. Her lap times have dropped off by 2.5-ish seconds per lap since her tyres started going bright red. I'm just watching Haslett almost connecting with the wall there. So all these drivers are starting to really suffer with the degradation on those tyres.
Yeah, which we all know it's not easy to drive, you know, with this high tyre wear.
Sophia's in.
Sophia's in.
Haslett's in. Bertie stays out.
Yeah. Surprising, but maybe, you know, he's going for that a little bit more on those worn tyres and seeing how far he can maybe get into the race. But yeah, I mean, 11 laps in and already like the top runners pitting, it just shows how high the tyre degradation is around this high speed track.
Yeah, and particularly with this lap being about 72 seconds. It's not a long lap either, so 11 laps is very, very quick. But with these bank corners, these long corners, the tyres just absolutely shred. So it is one of the only tracks in the season where we will see the hard tyres used consistently, just because the pace offset isn't favourable to them. But at the end of the day, some drivers, as we said, can cope driving down to the rims and therefore drive the softs all the way down to the actual alloy. But some drivers, myself included, prefer have a set of working tyres, even if it is the harder compound. But again, each to their own.
You raise a good point there. We usually say, oh, you know, did the driver really mean to go on those hard set of tyres? Because, like you said, the kind of the pace offset and the physics of the hard tyre in the GT7 it's not favourable, and it's very tricky to drive in on. But around this track, they seem to be the go-to tyre, and one you can go that a little bit longer into the race.
Exactly, and with the pits here being on the main straight, where in miles an hour, a lot of the drivers are doing between 160 and 170 miles an hour. It's an absolute age to be stopped and watch your opponents just absolutely cane it down the main straight. So it's a big time loss here, and I think Sharon knows that. I mean, even with that damage, she's still circulating in P6 with those hard tyres, and still fuel and tank's going to keep going. So I think she's showing our point quite nicely. It's worth just carrying that little bit of time loss to not lose it by sitting still.
Yeah, you know, it's that thing. If you've got a strategy in your head and you want to stick to it, sometimes that is the best way. Obviously, if you've calculated that you need to pit at by a certain point, and you want to stick to it, it means you're worrying less and you're not miscalculating. So yeah, by all means, if drivers can drive on with damage and comfortably, then I don't think it will harm them later on into the race when they come in for the pits.
Agreed on that one, absolutely agreed. It looks like a lot of the drivers have spaced out a lot now, and I don't mean they've left the chat, as it were, but there's a bit more of a gap between a lot of the drivers now. And we've just seen Terrence actually been lapped by Bertie, but I would imagine, again, as we've spoken with the pit stops, he's taken on a full tank of fuel and new tyres, and that would be probably 45 seconds worth of stop time. So he'll soon be possibly even past Bertie after this. In fact, I think he will be shortly unlapping himself, Sarah.
Yeah, obviously I think his main aim will be unlapping himself, but it also goes to show how fast Bertie is driving today.
Quite right, quite right. Just going on board with Handy Pipe at the moment. Do see a lot of he's not revving that car quite as high as he was in the sprint. So again, I think that goes back to what you spoke about in the sprint with learning from the sprint. So and we do know around here, as we've said a lot in the last 5 minutes, that time stopped in the pits is time lost. So if you save a couple % of fuel, that's less time you have to sit still.
Exactly that, and obviously with the format that we've gone for, it's you're straight into the race, you're straight into a sprint race, and then it's a little bit calmer into the qualifying, and then back into the feature race. So like I said earlier, I think that sprint race it's kind of like that adrenaline rush in a way. You want to get out there, you want to drive, and that is for some people their practice session. Turn up and drive, see how the car reacts around a certain track, how the tyres are, the fuel, and then they use that information in the feature race.
Which they all seem to have learned nicely, because we saw a lot of damage, although I did just catch Sophia coming very close to the wall there. But we saw a lot of damage in the sprint race, but this time out, much more conservative, and people playing the longer game this time, and it's good to see that we still got our top three who haven't pitted, but if you look right behind them, Sophia's coming back at them in P4. So it does prove that even if you do pit, you're obviously going to lose a bit of time. You do have the advantage of having, obviously, fresher tyres, and Sophia coming back at them. Unfortunately, just having a little touch in the wall there will lose a bit of time, but it's got away with it, no damage.
It's a game of kind of how close you can get to the barriers without causing yourself damage, because like we said in the intro and the track facts, there's so many barriers so close to the track here that if you miscalculate and you go a bit too fast into a corner, that the barrier's there waiting to collect you.
Yeah, and particularly around here, it's they're so completely unforgiving. And there comes Bertie. He's had enough of those medium tyres there. He's in.
Yeah, which promotes Handy Pine into first place.
Yep, Bertie with a set of new tyres. What do you think he's going to go for? I imagine he's going to go into the hard tyres there.
Oh, I think hards or another set of mediums. Obviously bringing those mediums 15 laps in. Potentially going on to another set, or like you say, going on to the hards, go a little bit longer into the race and maybe pit for softs towards the end.
Quite possible. We're going to keep an eye on it. He has in fact gone to the mediums again. So one thing we have to remind everyone about for this championship, for the feature race, you have to use 2 different compounds of tyres, but you have to start on the same compound of tyres that you've qualified on. So a good little couple of strategic choices that have already been made before the start of this race. But at the moment, it's a long race. There's a multi-pit stop race, and Bertie still to use a different compound, but we're only under 20 minutes in.
But yeah, talking about racing, obviously you were racing in the league yourself in Lobby 1 Midnight. Talk to us about, talking about, strategic calls in qualifying and in the feature race. And I know you went for the hard tyres it was. Talk to us about kind of that choice and why you made that choice.
Well, I can only give you the insight to my own personal driving style. I do prefer to start the race slower and get faster as I go, which is why I tend to go from the harder to the softer compounds. Each into their own. I think if you've got the speed, say like our Evo, our Swizzy, our Callum, even Pedro, and who have particularly devastating speed at certain courses, each into their own with their cars and their particular driving styles, so they can go for points in qualifying. Myself, I don't have that raw speed like they do, so I focus on my consistency and my pace in the feature race. So for me, as you said, I went to the hard tyres, and it was a calculated decision to go longer into the race and maybe have less pit stops, be a bit more. Just think about the longer plan, the overarching speed towards the end. However, it didn't work out entirely for me, as I had a spin earlier on. But it is a risky play sometimes by going to the softer or harder tyres. They have less grip. So it's a calculation that each driver makes for themselves. I just see Handy Pint nearly losing the back into turn 1. And Handy Pint's obviously come to the same conclusion that I did, and that was he wanted to go longer and have less pit stops. So it's down to individual preference at the end of the day. And but yeah, you can see this is the point that I got to, as well as Handy Pint. As soon as those tyres go off, and this is what I wanted to avoid, particularly by using the soft or the medium, having no grip with those rear tyres, is it just becomes, in my opinion, near undrivable. But again, some drivers can handle that better than others, as we saw in Lobby 1, particularly with Evo, Callum, and a couple of the others. Sharon. Ooh. Thank the Lord for ghosting.
Yeah, that was close. That was very close.
I think Sharon is going to be in this lap with lots of damage. But yeah, some drivers can definitely deal with like the lack of rear tyres more than others. Unfortunately, Sharon has highlighted a point there where the car can just become undrivable as soon as the rear tyres go, Sarah.
Yeah, and especially around that corner there, with it being such a high speed but banked corner, it just goes to show if you've not got the traction you want, or you go that little bit too fast into the corner, it is very unforgiving.
Exactly that. And we do see, as you said, Handy Pint was in off those hard tyres and Yvonne in at the same time. So they've gone as long as they think they can go, and Sophia regains the lead.
Yeah, and Bertie back up into those podium spots with Haslett as well.
I believe Haslett was the earliest pitter out of the lot, because he started on medium speed very, very early. But he's definitely gained time on Bertie, who was at one point, I believe, pushing him along. And yeah, it does prove that you can undercut your rivals here.
Yeah, with obviously that pit stop, like we keep saying, that pit stop being so long, you do lose quite a lot of time. So if you can pull off an undercut or an overcut, it's definitely beneficial around here.
There's still a couple of drivers yet to pit. That would be, well, actually I think it might just be one. It might just be Simon. Yeah, I believe it is. I think Simon's the only one yet to pit. And again, he's showing a regular improvement. I'm proud of him. And yeah, he'll be in shortly, I feel, because he's getting close to the end of that tank. And he's going to be wanting fresh tyres and get rid of that little bit of damage he's carrying.
Yeah, it goes to show that obviously a lot of drivers, they can drive on no tyres, but what you can't do is drive on no fuel. So I think if their fuel tanks were a little bit larger, we would have seen a lot of drivers going that a little bit further into the race with barely any tyres.
I agree, and I've got to ask you the same question, Sarah. What are your feelings about this track and driving it? Obviously, I saw you have some practice laps. What's your feeling of this track and how you would treat the tyre wear?
Oh, good question. Yeah, obviously very minimal practice, but practice nevertheless. You know, I enjoyed the high speed. Well, it's in the name, high speed ring. But I enjoyed the kind of the high speed characteristics of this track, the bank corners. When you get it right, it feels fantastic. When you get it wrong, you know, it does feel a little bit bad. And
oh, sorry to interrupt, we haven't seen it. Sophia's in with damage, so I'll let you carry on that point in just a second, but that's a little bit of an upset. Maybe a change of strategy, get rid of that damage very, very quickly, take on a bit of fuel and get back out there quickly. So again, back to you, sir.
Yeah, and go. I'm assuming here she's trying to go that little bit longer into the race as well. It looks like she's going to take a full tank of fuel as well. But yeah, going back to my point. Can't remember where I was now. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the practice that I did, although it was only a few laps. But yeah, the high speed characteristics, the bank corners, yeah, they feel pretty good when you get them right. Yeah, the tyre wear, it's difficult. I know that I'm not that confident driving on no tyre, shall we say, or the high tyre wear. I feel I like that traction. I like to know that obviously if I need it, there is a little bit of a grip. So yeah, as we're on board with Bertie now, just overtaking Haslett, going into that final banked corner over the start-finish straight. But yeah, if I was driving, I would probably be doing the same as the drivers, you know, trying to see how long I can actually go on those set of tyres. Risk versus reward. I'm going to keep going back to that. If the drivers feel comfortable on driving on the rims, then it helps with strategies, I guess, around here with the high kind of pit time. So yeah, I mean, if drivers feel comfortable, then I would definitely stick with that. But it's that limit, it's finding the limit of what you know drivers are happy with. As we saw Sophia, obviously, as soon as that rear tyre wear creeps in, it does get a little bit unstable. So it's a fine balance.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. And no, well, spoiler alert, and for those that haven't watched Lobby 1 already, which is up on our YouTube under Nighthawk Racing, of course. in Lobby 1. I found it personally very, very difficult to cope with the tyre when it got down to the canvas. But it is down to individual driving styles and the car, believe it or not. Some cars cope with the wear, particularly on the rear tyres, a lot better than others, particularly if they are of the four-wheel drive variety in Group 4. But at the moment, it all seems to have settled down. A lot of drivers look like they're taking very, very different strategies at the moment. We've seen Sophia pit for fresh tyres and damage already, so moving off away from that, trying to keep the average speed up high and taking that penalty of the pit stop. But at the end of the day, she's going to go a lot longer than the people around her.
Yeah, and going back to what we were just saying, obviously spoiler alert if you haven't watched Lobby 1, but yeah, our co-commentator Kirk pointed out that a lot of the drivers were opting for worn out softs was the tyre to go round on this track towards the end, which obviously, if you wear the tyres completely out, you've got no traction whatsoever. But a lot of drivers found it was their faster tyre, which was a little bit unusual. You know, if it works, it works.
But again, we've seen that across the series, particularly with Coach at Interlagos, who made it work. So again, each to their own. And as you can see, a lot of the drivers now are running with absolutely dead front left tyres, but 3 other good tyres on the wagon still going. It looks like Sophia is starting to catch Handy Point a little bit, but that's going to be one where eventually Handy Point's tyres do eventually run out. As you can see him drifting a little bit through turn 1. But that'd be when Sophia, if she can stay away from that barrier, as bitter before, then that the hard tyre may pay dividends in the end. But you know what? I'm really quite impressed with Piper, particularly in that Viper who is new to the series and joined us last event, and now is obviously in his second race with us, who's doing very well in P5.
He is indeed, and I feel like we're going to overuse that catchphrase within this championship, you know, but we're going to run with it. But yeah, obviously got his first taste of the Nighthawk racing last week in the sprint race, and it's good to see him, you know, driving in the feature race as well.
Yeah, quite right. It actually is his first feature race with us. Yeah, he only did the sprint last week due to time constraints, so good to have him on board. And somewhere Sharon has unfortunately picked up front right damage again, so I can only imagine that is a spin, but potentially out of turn 1 being front right damage, or maybe out of turn 3 onto the bridge. And that was a good few laps ago on lap 20, it looks like that occurred. So, been dealing with it for a little while, but still circulating. I believe it was Sharon who also picked up a podium. It was at least a top 4, I think at Interlagos again, because she wasn't with us last week, but definitely showing her mettle in this championship.
Like I say, I know Sharon quite well from racing her in the Esports Winter Cup, the Screen to Speed Cup, and it was always respectful on track. She was going for those daring moves, so I'm sure we'll see that maybe this race or next race as well.
Okay. Speaking of daring, I just saw Bertie shredding his front left tyre coming through turn 1. Every time I see it, just smoke pouring off that tyre, like, whew. So, just at the halfway point, Sarah, any thoughts on who your podium 3 are going to be?
Oh, I mean, it looks like Bertie's on a contender at the moment. After having that sprint race victory, he seems on a high right now, and enjoying that driving in first place. So let's see if he can hold on to it. But apart from that, I think anyone really could go on the podium here. Obviously, we know this sort of track, anything can happen, and it usually waits for the last 4 or 5 laps for those stuff to happen. But yeah, I think anyone is really in the taking here for a podium drive, as they're all doing remarkably well.
Yeah, it's good to see a lot of consistency from all the drivers. I mean, admittedly, there are some bits of damage here and there, but it does afflict each and every driver equally around here. And again, the same was in lobby 1. There was damage all the way through the field, and I do not want anyone to be disheartened by having to do an extra pit around here. This is a very challenging track. It doesn't look it, but it really, really is, and I can definitely prove that by even just watch my own feed, and maybe I just made it look difficult, but either way, it's a fun track when you get it right.
And it just goes to show that we are humans, we make mistakes, and yeah, I mean, I know if I was racing, I would be, having a little bit of trouble around a track like this. So it's good to see the drivers doing really well, and kind of learning as they go as well. Obviously, we know that coming into this race, this track was one of those tracks that it's very tough on tyre and on fuel. So it poses that a little bit more of a challenge to the drivers on the more of a strategic level, as well as obviously just racing the track. So yeah, obviously on the calendar, this was one of the ones that I think was probably going to be the most toughest race, both strategic and racing wise, keeping it on the track and keeping it out of the barriers. So all drivers completing the race, they should pat themselves on the back and be proud of themselves.
There you go, and as we've got a move going down into turn 1 by our Sabre or Haslett on Yvonne for P4. It's a tricky one to pull off because you narrow yourself on the exit and you really reduce your exit speed on this one, but it looks like Yvonne chose not to fight that one too hard, knowing it very well you could end up in the barrier.
Yeah, like you say, if you carry that bit too much speed going into that first banked corner and you narrow your line, it sometimes pays off, but sometimes it doesn't. But Haslett pulling it off and getting in front of Yvonne. But Yvonne, sticking with Haslett at the moment.
Sometimes around here, that's particularly the best thing you can do, is let the faster driver behind you through and just sit in their slipstream, save a bit of fuel, drag yourself along, and you actually pick up lap time for free fuel. So yeah, you definitely use this. It's less of a raw skill track, more of a thinking man's track. We did see that in lobby 1 as well. Those that were willing to think around the problems definitely benefited. I'm not calling anyone an idiot, but sometimes it's just a different skill set. Some people have the raw speed, some people go for the strategy. So it's just that kind of track.
Yeah, and some do both.
Yeah. It is worth saying as well that for our next round it will be at Deep Forest, I believe, which is a completely different track. We do have the calendar largely set up to be one type of track followed by a different type of track, just to keep our drivers engaged, fresh, and challenged and engaged. As Bertie has nipped into the pits because he was very low on fuel.
Yeah, cutting it very fine.
Ooh, battle for P2, which is going to be battle for the lead very, very soon, Sarah. Well, Bertie sat in the pits. The action's going on outside.
See Sophia getting on the back of Handy Point here. Will she stay in the slipstream or will she go for the overtake? She goes into that inside line into the first corner. Nips just in front of... Oh, very close. Just nips in front of Handy Point there.
Ooh, that was gutsy. But Handy Point might come back at her. It does into turn 2. This is going to carry on side by side for probably half a lap or so. A little bit of a touch. But... that might be viewed as a bit rude, but that looked just about okay from me. But yeah, I mean, this battle's going to carry on around the next lap.
What do they say? Rubbing is racing at the end of the day.
If you're in NASCAR.
Yeah, true. You know, some parts of this track do look like a NASCAR track.
I will give Sophia a little bit of a poke for that one though, because that almost looked like wall riding there. But we know our drivers have been warned about that, and more than anything, our drivers are trying to avoid that wall because you will get damage around here. So it's not one that they're going to be actively searching to do, I'm sure. However, it does always look a little bit bracing to go around there, as these two are still going in nose to tail into turn one a whole lap later. But I've got a feeling Sophia, with those newer hard tyres, is going to pull away from Handy Pint, try and break that slipstream, which I think she has done now. I'll tell you what, yeah, I do like the livery on that.
Looking to stick. Yeah, I mean all the liveries. I love them all.
Quite right, same.
We've got some very creative minds in this championship with some very beautiful looking liveries.
Yeah, we've been lucky enough to see a lot of really cool liveries over the last 2 seasons, and there isn't one I dislike.
Yeah, no, they've all been, you know, really good, and it just shows the creative minds of the drivers. And I always say, you know, the liveries are kind of a reflection of the driver, in terms of like the decals they choose, the colours. Yeah, it's good to see the drivers kind of reflecting their personality on their liveries.
Quite right. And the Ripon Deterrence livery that we saw at last race 3's first showing at night looked gorgeous. Again, they all look gorgeous, as Handy Pint is pitted as well, so from P2 that will elevate Bertie into P2 now. But yeah, it's constant. This is one of those races where it may not necessarily be on track passing, but there's constant changes of position one way or the other. And do you know what, even over halfway into this race, I still don't know who the winner's going to be, or what order the top 4 or 5 are going to be.
No, like we said earlier, it's all currently still to play for. A lot of chopping and changing.
One thing I particularly like about GT7, and it's one thing we've seen a lot of our drivers put a lot of effort into, and there are some outside sources who help with this in terms of the liveries and decals, that put a lot of effort into making their pit crew look pretty snazzy as well, and their own driver overalls and the helmets. You get a lot of individuality in this game.
Yeah, and you know, the pit crew is just as important as the driver. So getting them look nice, it kind of, again, it just reflects the driver and shows the creative minds, but also the kind of you know, again, a reflection of their personality, the colours they choose, you know, the liveries they create, the pit crew. So yeah, it's all the drivers. I've got to say, I'm very impressed with all their liveries and all their pit crew.
Exactly. I've just been watching Sophia for the last half a lap or so. You can just see the back end of the RSO, one snaking round as she almost hits the barrier. I think we're going to see her in very soon. There's a couple of things you can do in the car. You can turn up the traction control, but it won't necessarily save you every single time. But it looks like she's having a tricky time with that Renault at the moment. Maybe we're going to see her come in the pits. Not yet. It's going to deal with it for another lap or so. Oh, gives us time to take a bit of a breather, Sarah.
Yeah, just flicking through all the drivers, kind of seeing where they are on track, and you know, just looking at the nice looking liveries.
Yep, sometimes you've got to take a few seconds to have a bit of time.
Sometimes we are very easily distracted. We're kind of like, ooh, nice livery. But like, you know, when you go into a sweet shop, you're like, ooh, sweets.
I can agree with that. But at the moment, all the drivers are spaced out on track a little bit. There's no direct battles going on, but it's all going to come together towards the end, particularly when the strategies sort themselves out. But at the moment, no hint of rain, Sarah.
No, obviously we had a little bit of grey skies in the sprint race, but since then it's just been nothing but sunshine.
good old GT7 refusing to give us any variety, but I'd imagine that the drivers in the top 3 or 4 are quite happy with that at the moment.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be complaining.
It's something that you want, a bit of variety when you're having a bit of an off day. Try and catch the other drivers out ahead of you. And Sophia in turn 1 sideways. Ooh. There's not an adjective that can really describe that other than clenching your seat, shall we say. And drifting. Cue Tokyo Drift music. Actually, I'm going to stay with Sophia, see if she has the same problem in through turn 4 in that tight, high-speed right-hander. Oh, no, there you go, it's bitten her.
Ooh.
Yeah, I had a feeling that might have been coming. I think that's got to be a pit stop now. I mean, it does seem to be like McLaren in my experience. When those back tyres go, it becomes, I'm not going to say undrivable because some people can get around it, but if your particular skill set isn't dealing with that, then it bites you very quickly.
I've got to say, very lucky to not pick up damage there though.
Oh, completely. But that has put Bertie into the lead.
It has indeed, and yeah, I think Sophia getting off those worn tyres, going onto a fresh set, she won't be too far behind.
Haslett, Sabre into P2. Sophia still in the pits with some fresh tyres, and Yvonne going up into the podium position for now. Handy Pint still, who's recently pitted but circulating, is going to still come out behind Sophia, so that's going to be, oh, it might be a, I think Sophia's been lucky enough to actually pick up a bunch of time against Handy Pint somewhere, and there's yeah, I think probably short-filled actually. That is a bit of a tactic around here, because the less fuel you put in, the less weight you're carrying, the better your tyres last, and not to mention the faster you go, so maybe that's a strategic decision to short-fill from Sophia.
Potentially.
But it doesn't always pay off, because it does mean at your final pit stop, it means you've got to fill up more than the person behind you, so swings and roundabouts.
I'm just looking through all the drivers. They seem quite spaced out at the moment, like I said earlier, all settling into the race, and obviously this late into the race they'll kind of be looking towards their last pit stop, their last kind of strategic call, and then simply coming across the line. But we are far from the finish yet.
Yep, still another, ooh, what, 12-13 laps to go, even for Bertie. And he's going to have at least one more pit stop to go, so yeah, about 2/3 by number of laps, and just over that in time. So we're getting there. I don't think it'll be too long before Bertie's in, actually, depending on how long he wants to push those tyres. But he's looking good. He might be picking up. He might be the first person. I think, ooh, did he even pick up a double win one? I think he picked up a double win at Yamagiwa, didn't he?
Double win, yes.
I think he's going to be the second person this season to pick up a double win, which is it's very good for our own big crazy Bertie. But it's not to sniff at the other podium positions, which are still being fought over by Haslett in P2, Yvonne in P3, Sophia in P4, and as I speak of Yvonne, there she is in the pits. And Handy Pint as well, who is easily still fighting for the podium positions. It looks like today Rip and Deterra is having a bit of a harder time than might have expected, but as we do know, we've seen him race before in other series. He is definitely a talent, and he wanted to go for that 4GT for a bit of a challenge, a bit of something different. But it won't always pay off. But then again, sometimes this is racing. You're not always going to get the result you want, as long as you enjoy yourself out there, though.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you're enjoying yourself, that's the main thing. But we all know that Ford GT is quite a gas guzzling car.
He's American.
It would explain it.
Not that we have anything against American cars. In fact, we love American cars. It's just not always the quickest way around the track.
Yes.
Okay, Yvonne back out on track, and I think that is going to be, yes, her final stop. So she is the first of the top 5 to pit for the final time. And just as I say that, Haslett is in the pit, so here's the final stop. He's going to be so relieved to get rid of those tyres. And I think he'll probably go for another set of hard tyres to the end.
Yeah, it just goes to show that the hard tyre really is the kind of the tyre to go on around this track today.
Yeah. Do you know what? I might take that back. I have a feeling Sophia and Handy Point are going to the end as well. They've both got more than enough fuel to do so. 11 laps to go. I think, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to have to completely take that back. I think Bertie's the only one of the top 5 who still needs to pit. Sophia currently running in P2. Just skating around the T4. Whew. Despite getting away with it. Handy Pint doing the same now. But I think he's going to be on for a podium. But Haslett is going to be chasing him down. He's going to have much better tyres towards the end. Sophia out on medium tyres, taking that obligatory second compounder tyres. Which I think she may have actually started on medium, so again I might have to take that back. But we have seen most of the drivers run on hards for this race. And Bertie is actually, I'm not going to say so far out in front because he's yet to stop for his final time. But this lap is so short, we can see Bertie in the same shot as Yvonne in P5. So,
yeah, I mean, Bertie's really in kind of a world of his own in the race.
He's in his own.
Races tonight.
So come on, Sarah. Come on, let's have your podium 3. Who's going to be the podium 3?
Oh, I think Bertie. I think is. You know, he's commanded this race from start to finish. I reckon he's going to come home in first. Then it's still very close to call, but it's got to be within. It's got to be anyone within the top 5 currently. I think Sophia. You know, if she can.
Oh yeah, flag. Sharon has been round, unfortunately, in T2 in section 2. That's unfortunate. She's just made a final stop as well, so we might have to pit again or just deal with that for the final lap.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut across you.
It's alright. Who's that just in front of Bertie? That's Yvonne, I believe, isn't it?
Sharon and Yvonne, yeah.
Sharon and Yvonne, yeah. So, I think it's got to be. I think it might stay in the way it is, actually. The top 3 seem to be quite far ahead. You know, unless, well, actually saying that, Yvonne, obviously, Bertie has to pit again at some point, potentially. So maybe we might see Yvonne getting that a little bit closer into the podium again. But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough choice. But I'm going to say it's going to finish the way it is now. What about you?
I'm not convinced on the win for Bertie. I think he's got a very, very strong chance. But Sophia, with the final stop out of the way, and only being effectively 2 corners behind Bertie, is definitely in with a shout of the win as well, depending on how the tyre wear goes in the final laps. But the longer Bertie goes, the less laps he's going to have to put up with dead tyres, and not to mention less fuel he's going to have to take on. So we might see him go very, very close to the end and pit for soft tyres and go for the fast lap, although he even has it already. So do you know what? I'm not going to give this to Bertie yet, but I think it's between him and Sophia for sure. And for third, it's going to be how I think Handy Point's got this, as long as his tyre wear doesn't make his lap times fall off a cliff. So I think I am going to sort of agree with you. I think it's going to be Bertie, Sophia, Handy Point, but I think it's going to be close at the top 2.
Yeah, obviously I think it's anyone's game at the moment for that top spot, and the podium positions as well. Actually, it just goes to show that I've been, massively impressed by all the drivers in the championship, and especially the drivers that we're watching right now. They're all driving, their own race, but they're all showing their talent. They're all showing their pace. So it's they're all doing very well.
Agreed. I think Bertie's going to have to pit soon because he's now lapping 2 seconds a lap slower than Sophia. So I think he's got to pit now to make use of any softer compound tyre, unless he's just going to go right to the end and go for a massive overcut, fresh tyres towards the end. But what's he do here? Is he coming in pits? Here he goes. I think he'll go to mediums for that distance as well.
I think he might go for softs.
We shall see.
Risk it for softs.
Well, I tried that and it kind of bit me rather badly. So we'll see.
Coach as well in lobby 1. He pitted, I think, on lap 44 or 45, went on softs to the end, and they were kind of in their optimum zone right to the end.
Saying it, and also Sophia has taken the lead with that undercut. So at the moment, Sophia's in prime position with Bertie still in the pits. He's still fueling. What tyres has he gone to? Just going to beat softs. Race on.
Yeah.
Ooh, Sophia having a moment out of turn 1 as well. Ooh. Definitely squirming around trying to go, just drag time out at RSO1. But now it's race on. Bertie on soft tyres, only I think 15 seconds behind. But he's right out in front of Handy Point.
Yeah, just caught that. Handy Point obviously just being just behind Bertie. So I'm sure he'll be looking for that move as well.
Yeah, and worth noting that Bertie has definitely has got more fuel than Handy Point as well, so he will be revving that engine out. And we know from practice that the BRZ was very quick in a straight line. So I think Bertie's got P2 sewn up now. If he can just have a non-incident remainder last 6 laps or so, but it's race on for P1.
I mean, I've got to say, I don't want to commentator's curse and all that, but Bertie's had, I don't think he's had any mistakes so far, has he?
I think he might be the only driver we've seen with absolutely no damage so far. Showing wisdom in his seat there today by just making sure he's had a consistent race. I mean, admittedly, he's had a fast one too because he's got the fastest lap, so bit of both for him.
Yeah, which is good to see as always.
Ripping to Terence had his final stop as well. He's gone for medium tyres for his final stint. Interestingly, he's out just in front of Bertie. Admittedly, he's on the lap behind, but that might be a good bit of slipstream for Bertie there.
Yeah, which will all kind of help catch Sophia again.
Sophia's getting to that point where those rear tyres are going to start becoming a bit of an issue. She crosses the line, starting her 46th lap. And but he's just about coming up to the line. He's going to be catching like a rate of knots. Sets the fastest lap, 1:08.8. So there we go.
What a lap from Bertie.
Yep, takes 3 tenths off the top of that lap and sets his own new marker. But he's going to have to get this done quick before those tyres reach the canvas, so he's going to be trying as hard as he can to catch Sophia.
Yeah, and at this pace, he might well do.
And eyeballing it, I'm making it about an 8.5 second gap. So he's going to have to catch me about 2 seconds a lap, but at the moment, I'd say that is on because Sophia is lapping about 2.5-3 seconds a lap slower than Bertie. So, ooh, we might have another photo finish for Lobby 2.
We might indeed, yeah. I was just scanning those lap times as well, yeah. Bertie's setting some blistering lap times here on those set of softs.
Oh, ripping to tearing, and Sharon having a bit of a bump just before turn 1 there. Got away with it all right. Oh, somewhere our Viper driver Piper has had a little bit of a conversation with the wall. He's carrying a bit of damage. With a few laps going, maybe he'll decide to pit and go for some soft tyres and try and set a fast lap. Because we do have 2 points available for the fastest lap of the feature race.
We're doing these points all help towards the end of the championship, you know, when drivers are fighting for those few extra points. Going for the fastest lap is definitely something worth doing.
Yeah, quite right. And speaking of fastest, I can see Sophia trying to take every millimetre off track. But keep an eye on the background. There's Bertie. Oh, there's Bertie. As the camera finally pans to him. He's definitely catching. 1 minute 87. There you go. Another fastest lap. He's doing it again. He's pushing hard as absolute possible. But his front left's wearing out as Sophia's rear left is wearing out. So this is going to be battle of the tyres.
Yeah, it just goes to show when you're really pushing how fast the tyre degradation is around here. How fast that tyre wears. It's only been a few laps since he's been into the pits, and like you say already, that front left is seen better days.
Quite right, absolutely quite right. And something that Handy Pipe's going to be feeling now as well. He's got a dead front left tyre. Haslett doesn't look like he's going to have time to catch him, despite having better tyres, but the gap is definitely close between those two as well. And Yvonne looks like she's secured P5. So, into the last couple of laps. So, do you want to do a quick rundown?
I can well do. Well, in first place currently we have Sophia in that Renault. Obviously, had a few troubling moments during the race, but doing well and looking to take the win. But you get very close to the wall there. Just behind we have our very own big crazy Bertie, who's looking to catch Sophia up and take that lead back. And you know, we've got a few laps left. He might well do it, but I'm sure Bertie will be happy with the second place as well. In third, we then have Handy Pipe. Again, after what was a troubling sprint race, he, you know, he's took that data from the sprint race, and in the feature race, he's driving a pretty good race. In fourth, we then have Haslett. Quite a quiet race from Haslett. He was at the start. He was fighting for positions with the likes of Big Crazy Bertie, but after just having a quite a quiet but consistent race. Just behind Haslett, we then have Yvonne again fighting for those positions early into the race, and then just a quiet race. You know, picking up some positions here and there, and I'm sure enjoying the drive around this track. Just behind Yvonne, we have Ripon Deterring. Again, like we've previously discussed, that car is a bit of a gas guzzling car, so proving a little bit troublesome around a high-speed track such as the track we're at today. Just behind, we have Piper and the Viper. I had to say that. But yes, his first ever feature race, and he's made it the full race distance. Obviously, he wasn't quite sure if he could make the full race distance, but he has. And what a feature race he's having in 7th place, picking up some damage here and there. But in 8th place, we have Sharon. Sharon picking up again some damage here and there in the race, but she's having a phenomenal race. Obviously, this track is very difficult, so to do 50 laps around here is definitely a pat on the back and something.
Sarah, you've got to look at this final lap in the final corner. Ooh. Bertie's going for the move. It's going to be
get it stuck.
He's got the lead coming out of the final corner. I cannot believe he's absolutely stolen that one on the final corner. Wow. Bertie.
Yeah, that caught us off guard, didn't it?
Yeah, I was keeping an eye on it. I didn't think he was anywhere near that close until I went to the wide shot, and he's absolutely just yoinked that one. I mean, what a race! Wow, well done, you two. Absolutely well done.
Again, another photo finish in the Nighthawk Racing League. We had one last week in Lobby 1 in the feature race between Callum and Evo, and then again in the feature race for Lobby 2 around here we have Bertie and Sophia cutting it very fine, and Bertie just getting ahead of Sophia across the line.
Now that was a hell of a showing from those pair.
I think that will definitely make it to the highlight reel.
Oh, you're not kidding. It's right up there with Evo and Callum at Yamagiwa last week in Lobby 1. And Yvonne has just finished her race, the final driver on the lead lap. Ripindatarian's already finished. Piper, unfortunately, he's picked up a little bit of damage somewhere in the last lap or so, but finishes the race. Actually, and yeah, Piper has finished the race at this time at full racing speed rather than, you know, with no fuel and half an engine. But really good race so far. Well, from all the drivers there in that feature race. And you know what? I am absolutely massively impressed with all of our drivers there, and particularly that finish at the end. Bertie, where did you pull that one out of, man? I thought you were having no chance with that dead front left, but wow, I think we're gonna have to go back and have a look at that, Sarah, and see what happened on the final lap. Okay, so going back and have a look at this one, I think it's well worth a look, Sarah. So let's have a check it out and see how Bertie managed to steal that one.
Yeah, I'm definitely eager to watch this. It caught us a little bit off guard, so you know, watching it back, giving it the attention it deserves.
Okay, so this is going to be the lap on board with our big own crazy Bertie. As you can see, he's about 3 seconds behind Sophia at this point, and we're going to be keeping a absolute eye on this one. Sophia crossing the line about 2.5 seconds ahead of Bertie. So there's Bertie, there's Sophia. Sophia absolutely pushing that RS01 to its limits through turn 1, Sarah.
Yeah, and struggling with a little bit of that rear tyre where Bertie's a little bit, you know, on that front tyre seen some better days, but one with no rear tyre, one with no front tyre. It's battle of the tyres, as we said.
Yeah, completely. And at this point, you can see Bertie is just getting into that point where he's just about in the slipstream. So I think this is where he's won the race. He's just got to that point. But Sophia's going to be coming through turn 4, struggling. Yeah, that rear tyre has given up at this point. She's got no grip in that rear tyre, and Bertie has the slipstream in full. It's just going to just coast up and just get that slipstream, and boom. That's a cracking move there.
That is, I'm sure that he'll be smiling ear to ear with that move.
There's a thumbnail. Woo! Right, Sarah. Well, what an event here at the high speed ring in reverse from the sprint race and the feature race, particularly with that ending. I was not expecting that. How about yourself?
No, I think catching us off guard for sure. We were kind of looking elsewhere until we saw Sophia and Bertie getting so close to each other. But yeah, what a race finish, and another photo finish to add to the books.
Yeah, definitely both lobbies giving us a lot to enjoy over the last couple of events, and there's one thing I've really enjoyed about Lobby 2. It's always good racing, and yeah, and at the end of the day, they've all proven their absolute worth in this one, and Sophia and Bertie putting on a show right to the end. But other great results throughout the field there. Solid points from so many of the drivers and solid races. But it's always a bit of a tale of two halves. I mean, this is a tricky track. It catches some people out. sort of tears and ecstasy at the same time, depending on your finishing position. So I do want to just give all the drivers absolute credit in this one for just making it to the end. It's been great to see. Any standout drives out there for you, Sarah?
Oh, I mean, everyone. They had a phenomenal race. Like I said earlier, driving 50 laps around a track like this is very difficult. So to make it to the end is definitely an achievement and a half. But I mean, I've got to say Bertie is one of the standout drivers. Obviously, usually we kind of see him just having a quiet race, but he really showed his raw talent and raw speed around high speed today. Apart from that, I mean, a big shout out to Handy Pint, to Haslett, Yvonne, you know, all doing remarkably well. But as well, obviously Sophia in that Renault. It's not an easy car to drive, especially with that tyre wear. So yeah, I mean, everyone doing so well.
Agreed. The only thing I'll say is Sophia coming away with this may be disappointed with P2, because it is again a tale of that what could have been kind of moment. But I have to say, even with damage and a spin, to be that close to the victory, I think that is outstanding. Her raw pace and talent is always clearly on display there. And again, despite being Lobby 2, has shown that she genuinely belongs in Lobby 1, the top of Lobby 2, and just to be in the championship in general. So absolutely hats off to Sophia. I can only agree with what you said about Bertie. He has had a bit of a quiet race in some respects, but he's had a very intelligent race, a very measured race, and just got to the end. No damage, no particular fuss. Done slipstreaming, done bump drafting, done everything that he needed to do, has come away with the win, even if he did only lead the final lap by the last 100 or so metres.
Yeah, no, I'm sure he'll be very, very happy about that. And like I say, I think everyone, you know, give themselves a pat on the back. It's not an easy track, not in easy conditions, and I'm sure they'll be, you know, looking forward to Deep Forest and leaving High Speed Ring in the past.
Yeah, it's going to be one track that people are going to be eager to see again or never see again. So
mixed feelings of this track.
Yeah, somewhat Marmite, but I think that leads us on to the final point. If you're happy, I'll do a very quick run up of the drivers, and then we'll give our drivers of the day.
Yeah, of course, go for it.
Cool. In which case, I'll start with Simon. Again, it is absolutely worth saying that this gent is on tens of hours on this game and is proving week in, week out. So we hope to see him continue to improve. And again, I love the livery and I love that RX Vision. It looks gorgeous around here. So keep on going, Simon, and yeah, just keep doing exactly what you're doing. Sharon, it looks like she had a bit of a difficult race today. However, with that 458, as we know, when those rear tyres go off, it becomes a very, very difficult beast. It's very quick, but it's a very challenging car. So it is one of those tracks where she may come away a little bit disappointed with 8th. However, that will not always be the case, and I look forward to seeing her in Deep Forest as well. Piper, in that Dodge, definitely doing well, and it's good to see him for his first feature race. And yeah, I think he's done himself proud today. So keep on going, Piper. Pleasure to have you on the grid. Ripper Deterran hasn't featured as much in this race as he did in the previous race at Yamagura. But however, that is a tricky car to drive around this track. It's not very fuel efficient, and that means a lot around here. So again, other tracks will suit the car and perhaps his driving style more. But again, coming away with 6th is not the easiest thing in the world here. So well done. And on to Yvonne, who to me always impresses. She isn't driving her preferred method at the moment. She's on a controller rather than on the wheel, and is getting a lot out of that Beetle. It's not always the most competitive car, but she's making it work. So absolutely hats off to her on that one as well. Saber Vellum, also known as Haslett, P4 with a very, very strong, sturdy, solid race, making that M6 work, and up to P4 just outside the podium. But should be very proud of that one. Handy Pint in that 911. Looks like he to me, he got better throughout the event. Obviously, he struggled a little bit in the sprint, perhaps with fuel management. Perhaps that's something as a group we need to look for these high fuel races going forward. But at very least, it's definitely made it to the end, and a podium in a tricky track is well done to Handy Point, and forward to seeing him in more races. Bertie, I'm going to come to him in a minute because I want to mention. I mentioned Bertie first because I want to mention him and Sophia kind of at the same time. The pair of them have been just outstanding today for one reason or another. So I'm going to talk about them both at the same time, actually. Bertie has had a very measured race and a very good race, so well done to him. And same to Sophia, who has struggled with a car that is not great in feature runs, but is more equipped for a sprint. But the pair of them together have been absolutely brilliant. So, Sarah, driver of the day. And go. And give yourself a couple of seconds just to...
Well, just thinking about it, I think I've got to give it to Bertie, you know. I mean, 2 victories in one night is no easy task. And what a photo finish that was. So I've got to give it to Bertie.
I would agree with you. In all honesty, I don't think there's anyone else who has done as well in this event. Again, there's some shout-out performances, particularly from Sophia and Handy Pint, and again, a few of the others, in fact, as well. But Bertie just... I was almost going to say, he doesn't necessarily need to be the fastest to win, but he's got the fastest lap, so I think the measured performance from him, to repeat a phrase, is definitely is won out in the end, and it's a very intelligent and well thought out drive.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
So, on to the next round, Deep Forest.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Like we said earlier, a little bit of a difficult track, not a track that we see very often. So I'm sure the drivers will be practicing as we speak. You know, getting themselves ready, getting their strategies ready for next week.
Exactly. And all I can say is on YouTube, feel free to have a check out of our back catalogue. Check out the other races. I think we can particularly recommend Lobby 1 at Yamagiwa last week for another particularly interesting finish. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, we hope to see all of the other drivers and all the viewers again in future sessions. So I'm going to say, from my side, thank you very much. Please feel free on YouTube to give us a like, comment, and subscribe. For live commentary of Lobby 1, please check out Sarah herself with Sarah_Hawkey on Twitch. And yeah, I guess that's onwards to the next race, Sarah.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And like Midnight said, looking forward to seeing everybody next week.
Perfect, in which case, thank you very much, and we'll see you all on the next one.
Nighthawk, over and out.
Hello everyone, Yvonne Auflaar here. It was a great race, especially the sprint. It was very excited in my little Beetle, loads of tire wear and a lot of fuel usage. So I started on the back and I started in engine mode 3 to save some fuel, did 1.5 lap and then went all out. Got up to P2 with some great pace and very consistent. Unfortunately, I got hit on the rear, so I had rear damage. But a lot of other drivers were struggling with the fuel to go to the end of the race. So that was my luck. And I finished P2. And I was with Sharon in the voice chat. She finished P3, so well done to her. And yeah, crazy Bertie did crazy at the high speed ring reverse. He drove very well, so congrats to him. The future race was going to be a difficult one because a lot of tire wear. I don't have the speed. And I was going to do a two-stop strategy. I started on the medium tire. After 8 laps, I had already left a front red tire, completely wear out. Still kept driving. Did 18 laps and then 18 laps on the hard tire. And then I went back to the medium and just see where I end up. I think it was P5. Not very happy. It could be better, but I did what I could. I want to thank the organization for a great race. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to the next one. I also want to thank Sophie, who gave me the high-speed ring reverse boot camp because I never drove it before. See you all by the next race.
The race went decently well for me. Granted, the scenario of the driving penalty during the sprint race, that would hamper my performance overall in the standings, as well as my mishaps during the feature race, which, if I remember, was me running into a wall and getting damage, as well as a lot of just the car trying to snap on me mid-corner. The tire wear was horrendous for the R01. It just did not like that track. Those mid-engine cars nowadays, as soon they burn on the rear tires, and as soon as those rears gone, the car will snap on you. It just does not want to drive. You want to try. You want to turn right. Yeah, it wants to turn around and go back where it came from. Which the race went all right. Car gave me some issues, but it's nothing I can't deal with really. It's not ideal, but I can make it work. Yeah, the drivers. At the end, I got caught because the car with the tire wear, it just snapped at the last corner before the long straight, before the finish line. P2 had just caught up to me on the last stint and passed me at the end. Fun race. I definitely would rate it about a 7 or 8 out of 10. If it wasn't for the car, I'd give it a higher rating. But yeah, enjoyed myself. Had a nice race with the drivers. A little bit of contact during the sprint race because, slow drivers with the faster driver that had the penalty colliding. Little things, but overall I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me in the event and hope to maybe be able to make the next one. If not, the one after. But yeah, thanks.
After the practice session on Sunday and also trying out everyone's car, I felt confident in the BRZ. That car felt so stable around turn 1 compared to other cars. The sprint, I think I was lucky with a few mistakes from some of the drivers and managed to take advantage of it. The feature was hard work. The BRZ just shredded its tires. The hards wore at the same pace as the mediums, so I knew I wasn't going on the hards. I went 3 stints on the mediums and was seeing what Sophia was doing and noticed that at the end of her stints she was losing a lot of time. Before my last stop I noticed Sophia was gaining on me, so decided to pit for softs knowing she was going to slow at the end. It's just lucky that she made a slight mistake in the second to last corner that let me have the run on her to finish line.